Hi, this is John with Estimator for SketchUp, back with part 2 of our Estimator Retreat sample model. In the first video, we applied or generated takeoffs and created an estimate for the entire foundation for the project. So next we're going to jump into framing. So the next scene I have is the sill seal, the simple poly seal that we put down before we put our plates down. So what I'm doing is I'm just clicking on that sill seal, which I actually modeled using Profile Builder again, just so I could get the lineal footage of it. So when I go to layers and I've got my sill sealer here, if I type in descriptions and say sill, there's my sill sealer roll, 50-foot roll, $11 each. So I need 2 rolls because I've obviously hit over 50 feet. So there's our sill sealer. Okay, so the next scene we're going to go to is our framing. Now, you can do framing in a couple of different ways. I used Framer for SketchUp, which is one of our plugins, and all this framing was done using Framer. All the sloped walls and the rectangular walls were done using the plugin, even the little short walls in here. But you could also do standard SketchUp geometry, make your own studs as components and that sort of thing. But really, for me, the fastest and easiest way is obviously to use Framer, because as I model walls, I'm getting my quantities provided for me at the same time. So it's instantaneous. And the way that it works is with Framer creates these plates and studs, and the sheathing and the treated plates, everything is on its own layer. So that way, when you assign a material to it, you'll instantly get your takeoff. So I'll show you how that works. The only other anomaly here is we have this pocket door frame, which is simply a component. If I clicked on that, I'll use the components tab, and so we'll say components, pocket door frame. That's the only thing that's in there. I'm going to come into my description and start typing in pocket door frame. Here it is, and $143. So we're set on that. All right, so now let's just pick a wall to start with. Okay, I'm going to pick this this first wall here. So right now, when I go to layers, you're going to notice now that I've selected that wall, it's on a layer called wall framing on the main floor, but it's comprised of all these layers. So there's wall plate 2x6, which is the top plates. There's the wall stud. Now you'll notice it's underscore 2x6, so you know what size it is. But it's also got an underscore with the height of the wall. This is important because you have to know what size stud to order everything out of. So you know, I had to come up with a way of handling the different heights that you have. Or is it 8-foot walls? Is it 9-foot studs or 10-foot studs? That sort of thing. So that's why we named it by the height. So you can look at that and go, okay, well, it's 8-foot studs that will be used for that, which we'll do in a second. Header material, I got 2x8 headers in here, and then the wall sheathing, OSB, and then I've got a treated plate at the bottom. So let's just start from the top. We'll choose our wall plate 2x6, and I go to my description and I start typing in 2x6, and in my items database, I have a 2x6 by 16 SPF plate material. This is what I use. That is taken when I select that plate material, click on that. You're going to notice it's using, in this case, it's using the attribute of feet divided by 16, because I order 16-foot material for my plates. I don't order random different sizes. That would just confuse the guys. So I just order 16-foot material and round it up. I've got some waste in there. So in this case, it's going to take 4 plates to do the double top plates. It's including these plates that I have on the headers as well. So we're good there. If I go to wall stud 2x6, now it's 8'1" 1/8". So I'm going to come in and start typing in 2x6. And there's my 92 5/8 studs that create an 8-foot wall. Same token, when I click in there, you're going to see, in this case, I use the attribute of feet divided by 8. Now you could get technical about that. It's 7.9, whatever it is. I just have the divide by 8, some waste in there. So you can see in this case, I've got 17 studs to do the corners that in the and the jacks at the opening and so forth. So that's our studs. Header, same exact way of doing things. I've got a 2x8. I've got the material itself if it was like a rafter or something, but I also have the 2x8 by 16 that says per lineal foot. These would be a quantity times 1. This is actually where I want to use the lineal footage and add it up. Okay, so if I click on that, again, it's the lineal footage divided by 16. So I've got two pieces to do that header in there. All right, and then we have our sheathing. So in this case, I'm going to say OSB, and there is my 7/16 inch OSB. It's taking the attribute of square feet divided by 32 to get 3 sheets for that wall of OSB. Okay, so and I'm going to also add, though, I want to add, hit the plus button, and I want to add my Tyvek house wrap. So if I start typing in Tyvek, you see I got 9 foot by 100 foot roll of Tyvek. Now, obviously, one roll is more than we need for this one wall, and but once we accumulate walls, it's going to start eating into that roll. Point is, if you only had one wall to build, you'd have to buy a roll of Tyvek. So the other thing we want to add is our, we're going to add one more in here for our Tyvek tape. So Tyvek tape. And again, I just created a formula that takes the square feet divided by 1,500 for the 1,500 foot square foot roll, and then times 6, because there's 6 rolls of tape per roll. And you can adjust these formulas to make them work out for as you need. Okay, so therefore I've got one roll of tape in there. Okay, so that's that wall. Now when I come over here and click on this wall, which has all the same parameters, you're going to notice I've already got my quantities in there, and it's got all the same stuff. I want to make sure, though, you see I've got all the same exact ingredients, if you will, or items in that wall. So I don't have to do anything to that wall. It's already good to go. So when I go to, let's do these interior walls. Now in this case, it's a 2x4 wall. So when I go into here, I've got some new stuff in here, okay, that we hadn't priced yet. Now remember that once we've added all this pricing in here for these layers, you don't have to do this with every new model. You can export these layers and import them into a model, and it's going to already have all the information that you've took the time to fill out. So we'll be discussing that in a later video. So the 2x4 treated, I'm going to come down and start typing in 2x4 and see my 16-foot PT. Where is that? Let's go. Let me start that one over again and say 2x4 by 16, and there's my PT plate material, pressure treated. So you can see I need one plate to do that. I'm going to go and pick my wall plate 2x4 and say 2x4 by 16, and there's my SPF plates. So that's what I want, divided by 16. And then finally, I've got my 8-foot pre-cut studs. So 2x4 by 92 and 5/8 studs. Okay, I got 16 of them in that wall. And so now that's got everything in that wall. If I was to click on this wall, it probably has everything we need. So if we click on 2x4s, you can see we got 4 of those. We got our studs, we've got our wall header, and we have our treated 2x4s. So we're good on that. Now remember, we got this other little short wall in here. So we're going to have all of our plates without a problem, but since Framer made a special height wall, you're going to see we got this 2x4 by 3'10" wall. So we got to tell Estimator and this layer, what are we going to cut those out of? So a 2x4 by 3'10½", we're using 8-foot studs. So the guys are just going to be picking up whatever studs laying around. So we'll say 2x4 by 92-inch stud, 92 and 5/8 studs. Okay, so that gives us our studs for that. Otherwise, our other stuff is on the plates, which we already have calculating. All right, that just leaves us with these tall walls. Now, these are sort of angled walls that are framed up to where the rafters are going to be. Now, this provides another issue with Framer of how do we determine what these are cut out of, because we're not going to order 8-foot studs unless you want to do an 8-foot wall and then frame on top of that. This is a stronger way of building it all in one. So what we did there with Framer is we came in, and again, see, it's giving you the name of the height of that wall, 10-foot 9-inch walls. So what if we decided, let's get some 12-foot material out there, and if we did, so 2x4 by 12, there's my 12-foot material that I have. So it's taking the attribute of feet divided by 12, and there we go. Otherwise, we've already got our treated plates, and we've already got our wall plates, and everything else is good to go. So now we do this, let's just verify that other wall should be the same exact configuration. So when we go in here, the wall studs are the same, so they're cut out of 12-foot material, so we're fine. So now let's look at this real tall wall in here, and that is made out of a 15'7" is the peak height of that wall. So let's use 16-foot material for those. So we say 2 by 6 by 16. We'll use it out of that same plate material because that's what we're going to be cutting those out of. So now we've got 12 2 by 6s to do that wall. We come over here and we've got the same exact wall height, and it's 14 studs in that wall. So now we should have everything good to go there. We've also got this timber frame element that is a component, timber frame entry. Now we'll see if I've got that in my, this is a specialty thing. So here's a timber frame entry kit. Don't have a dollar amount to that because these things will change on a per job basis. I'm going to put in $2,500 for that. Okay, now you notice I get this message that pops up that says this is linked to your items database. Making the changes will unlink them. Do you want to continue? I'm going to click OK because here's a case where in my generic database, I'm going to put $0 in there because I don't know what it is yet. Then I can change it here and it's now going to unlink it from the items database. And this is important because when I go back in and make these other changes that we've been doing, let's say I've updated my framing prices and I come in here and sync the database, I don't want it to wipe out that $2,500 and make it 0 again. So that's going to make it hold in there at the $2,500. So that's pretty much got everything with all the wall framing. Okay. And at this point, this would be a good time to show you the inspector that we showed you in the first video. I'm going to select everything that you see in here, okay, including that other little wall in there. Okay, so now I've selected all the framing so far. We've got $4,000 in here. To make sure that we haven't missed something, like you notice how we had those studs where we had to do the a separate entry for those. We're going to go up to Extensions and Estimator and run Inspection. And what that's going to do is look for anything in this group that we've selected that has not been given a price to it. And you can see that everything, it hides everything that's been assigned a price. So we're looking good. We've got these treated 2 by 6s down here that is showing up. And I'm pretty sure that we did treated 2 by 6s. But let's go and look and see what's happening with that. I'm going to hit Escape to go back out of the inspector. And as soon as that comes back out, we're going to find out what's going on with the sill plates. So if I click on that, and let's go to our Layers tab and find out what's going on with 2 by 6 treated. I never did assign a price to the 2 by 6 treated. That's why it's so important to have that inspector. So 2 by 6 by 16, and there's our pressure treated plates. Great. So now we have everything accounted for in all of our wall framing. Okay. So let's go to the next tab, which is the Loft Floor System. All right, so this floor system was modeled. You got different ways you can do this. These are floor joists that are 11'11" long, so I'd be cutting those out of 12-foot material. So you could either make these components, or you could extrude them out like I did with Profile Builder to make the joist. But I've also got these band materials. I've got the shorter pieces and all that, and it's all going to get cut out of 12-foot material. So what I'm going to do is select that group. And I'm going to go to my layers and I'm going to go to my joist that's 2 by 8. And I'm going to come in and say for the description, it's 2 by 8 by 12 on a per lineal foot basis. All right, that gives me the 19 joists that I need to do this without having to go in and make every one of these little short pieces a component and trying to figure out what it's going to get cut out of. So that just makes the most sense for me. All right, so then let's do our Loft Subfloor. So when we do the subfloor layer, when that pops up, what we're going to do is use the layer for the subfloor. And description, I'm going to start typing in Advantech because I use Advantech subflooring, and there it is. So it's taking the square footage divided by 32, and that's 7 sheets that it's requiring. And I'm going to further hit the plus button, and I'm going to come in and add for my subfloor adhesive. So what we'll do is we'll type in adhesive, and there's our subfloor adhesive. What that's doing is taking the square feet divided by 32, and it's 1.5 tubes per sheet. So there's our 8 tubes of adhesive. So now we've got our subfloor and our subfloor adhesive in there. Okay, so now the next step that we have is our loft walls. So in this case, these tall walls we've already taken care of. We've just got this one little short wall right here. So when I go into the layers in this case, remember we're going to have a special height stud right there. So if I go into it and I've got this wall stud that's 3'4", Estimator doesn't know what that's cut out of yet. So let's say that it's a 2x6, and let's keep going with our 92 5/8 studs. So it's going to be grouping those totals as we go. We've also got this little short wall over on top of the beam that we've got in there. So in that case, we're going to go and find this 3'9" wall. Same case, 2x6 by 92 5/8. Now we've taken care of that. We should have, in this case, we've got headers that are 2x10. We've got that taken care of, our sills, our plates, all that's good. All right, so now you can see we've got this parallam beam that's spanning across here, and it's 16-foot long parallam. And let's go in and say, under our components tab, and I'll start typing in the description parallam, and there it is, 16-footer. That's $160 for that beam. Okay, so now we've got everything, and one thing we've got to do is we really need to post solid underneath that beam. So for you framers out there, we'll go back in and add that in. I need some solid blocking underneath there. All right, so, but for now, that gets us going with all the framing that we see here, with everything up to the loft, okay? All right, so now let's take a look at the roof framing. Now this roof framing is all in a group. It's all on a layer that's for my roof framing layer to control visibility. But I've done this one in two different ways just to show you the couple of different methods here. These 2x8s these are 12-footers down here, and these are 16-footers to do this upper roof. As with the joists, I've just modeled all this stuff extruded out so I can get the lineal footage divided by 12, because I've got these various sizes in here and cuts and things like that. These 16-footers, I did these as components because to show you can do both different ways. So first of all, let's tackle our layers. Our layers here, we've got wall plate 2x8 that I'm going to come in and say these are 2x8 and by 12 foot per lineal foot here. So that gets us our 2x8s by 12 for these rafters in here, and it's also for these subfascia boards that we have in there. Okay, so that takes care of all the 2x8s. The 2x4s already have pricing to it from below. These are all these 2x4 lookouts. So the other thing we have now is these components. When I go to components, you're going to notice that I've got a 2x8 by 16 rafter that's out on the outside. We've got the 2x8 by 16 rafters that are notched, and we have the 2x8 by 16 rafters in the field here. So each one of those are going to get assigned to our, I'm picking the first one and saying 2x8 by 16, and it's going to the one that's not per lineal foot, because that's on an each basis, quantity times 1. So there's 2 of those. I go to rafter 2 and do the same thing. This way they'll be grouped on our report and totaled up as one entry. So there's 2 of those. And then finally I have the field rafters. So we're at 2x8 by 16 here. We have 10 of those. So that's all of our roof framing right there. $539. We could run a quick report on that on the projects tab just to take a look. And you can see we've got 19 2x8s by 12 based on the lineal footage, and we've got 14 based on individual pieces of the 16-footers, and we've got 4 2x4s in there for doing the lookouts. Okay, now that we have our roof framing, let's check out the roof sheathing. Now I used a zip panel on here. You diehards will know you've got to stagger your joints. It wouldn't look this way, but I just put a zip texture in here to show you, number one, how I'm calculating roof sheathing and so forth, and the underlayment, but also to throw a different product in there. So when I click on this selection for the sheathing here and I go to my layers, I've got roof sheathing, but notice the bounding box is rectangular or a cube here. It's trying to read the area that's flat, not sloped. Okay, and we need that sloped area. So the way that I get around that with all my roofs is I use materials for that. So I'll either use the shingles, like you could use if you had shingle texture on there, you could use that one texture to get your sheathing, your underlayment, your shingles themselves. So there's multiple ways of doing it depending on how detailed you want to be. I'm going to go to the materials tab and I'm going to choose this zip roof. Okay, and then see if we get zip in our database, and there's our zip roof panels. So in this case, it would be 9 sheets. It takes the square footage divided by 32. Okay, so we should get the same results when we click up on this one. And when we see material or zip roof, okay, we've got 11 sheets on the upper roof, and all that makes sense. Well, since it's zip, let's hit the plus button and let's add our tape in there. So if we say zip tape, so we've got 2 rolls of tape up there. We'll probably have 2 rolls of tape on this one in here. We go to the zip roof, and there's our 2 rolls of tape. So that's how we tackle the roof sheathing. Okay, so that is pretty much all of our framings. I'm going to come in, I'm just going to select everything to do with our framing. We've got $6,171. Let's run Estimator's inspection, and you see the hourglass, and what it's doing is it's going to hide everything that doesn't have pricing information to it. Aha! So we can see here that we've got some things that are on layers that are not being calculated, or they weren't properly placed on a layer, and those are all in our roof framing. So let's go ahead and click off of that. So let's hit escape. That's going to bring us back out to where we were. And let's double click on that group. I'm going to hide rest of model, Shift H for me. And so we had some items in here that were not getting put on a layer. So Control D brings my dialog back up. So you see that is on layer 0, and that should have been on that wall plate 2x8 layer. So that's why that wasn't calculating. Probably the same boat down in here. So wall plate 2x8. Maybe that one is on layer 0. Let's see if that one is on wall plate. That's on wall plate. I wonder if this one on the end. Yep, so those are. So let's go back to this one short guy right here, and let's put that one on wall plate 2x8. If I recall right, it was these little guys right here. These were the headers that we had that I put in there that were going either side of that wood burning chimney that was coming up through there. So we'll come over here and say wall plate 2x8. We'll close out of that edit. So now that we've got all our framing, I'm just going to select everything in this box that we have that we call framing, and there's our framing order. We can go to our project tab, hit our HTML report, and here's all of our framing materials for this project, including our pocket door frame and that timber frame entry kit. So that's how we do all the framing for Estimator for SketchUp. So thank you for watching, and let's look out for the next video. Thanks.